we now have a lot more neuroscience and research about mirror neurons and their function in empathy and another person's experience. They were clinically unproven until about 20 years ago, but now they've knowing about this, and I'd like you to take this into your work next week. It's completely changed our understanding around brain, nervous system, and social behavior in relationships. So the mirror neuron is a type of cell located throughout the whole nervous system. Yeah, so I'm going full body here, full body. And they fire, I love that, firing neuron, when we observe a behavior or emotion in another person. And that's really sitting with me, that picture EJ just painted for us there. This person might be online. It might be in therapy. It might be when we're watching a film or something on Netflix and we can't stop crying. Watching a movie, reading a story. We are moved. We are moved. Physically, emotionally, together, we are moved. So when we observe someone experiencing an emotion or action, the observer's neurons, your neurons, fire as if they are the ones acting. They stimulate internally without physically producing the action. Thus, the mirror neurons provide a link or a mirror. Again, thank you for that example, AJ, between the other person's actions and our own actions. So this positively does enable us, individuals, to experience what another has gone through, as if they were the ones carrying them out. Okay, so often this felt countertransference caused by the firing of the neurons in your body. So in your work, your neurons are firing. In the past, it's been understood as empathy. Yeah, empathy has been seen as far more as just cognitive or a psychological phenomenon, which, however, Babette says that it is an integrated process involving both cognitive and somatic body activity. There's lots of different explanations for this, but I do love this quote from Nick Totten. Our body bathes in and soaks up the embodied presence of the other. We catch fire from them. We breathe them in and metabolize them. We reverberate to their rhythm, and our rhythms shift to echo them. So they do help us. This also helps us explain why at times our empathy runs out. When are we, somebody's just told me this and I have no reaction, we become burnt out. Yeah. So this unconscious mirroring may be a major factor in our profession around risk of compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma and burnout. And this is relevant to all therapists. To have some people say, oh, I've got 30 clients a week, I've got 40 clients a week. There's no stronger version than another. No, that's not true. And you might see it in your training, you know, where there's like the ego and the be strong, and yeah, they'll just fall off the end, right? They will disappear and they will be gone. I've got all these, so the NHS, right? No one is invincible to this. Your body is completely part of this process, this autonomic mimicry, autonomic memory. But there's something in these moments that's, so there's a little health thing around that, and also some neuroscience, but also these moments, like EJ just mentioned there, they're called charged moments. So just think, I'd like you just to reflect on clients, moments, things that come up, who's coming to mind. There's often a charge around these moments. There's some energy, there's a connection. Yeah. And Michael Soth writes that reflection on countertransference often boils down to a contemplation of these charged moments in the relationship. Charged moments in the relationship. So there's something going on. Eric Byrne called this charge, or this energy, physis. And there's a few people here who've mentioned Patricia Clarkson. She called this metanoia, which is then what she named the Bramble, where you're studying. AJ, I think you went there as well. So these charged moments. It's extremely powerful, extremely powerful. So noticing them, but also I just want to go in just before we take a short break. There's something that's really important to mention here, because as therapists, we want to avoid them sometimes. And I really have to encourage you to notice them. These charged moments in your therapeutic relationship, that when we want to be working it, especially in an embodied way and a somatic way, that the countertransference, you can't do that and not have this, right? It's like the sun and the moon. Working in this way and being aware of this countertransference, like we just said there about AJ's experience, it is messy, it is confusing, it is shameful to you, to me, right? It's non-linear and it's pretty complex, okay? So, these are examples that have happened to me, right? So when this is happening real time, like, and I just notice what's coming to mind, right? What goes through my mind and what has is, oh my gosh, what is going on here? That moment where you think, oh shit, right? What's happening here? And these, for me, I'm thinking, is this really happening? In the moment, right now, is this actually happening? And also, what the hell do I do next? Right. So it's really what we are feeling, having awareness of the breath. What do I do? So please remember that this happens to everyone. This happens to me all the time, all the time. So for people who are just starting out and you haven't run out the door yet, you know, stick with it. This is part of the process, that learning that AJ mentioned earlier. So surrendering to the process is difficult and it is uncomfortable. And it takes many failed attempts to, and really to screw up. And it's about, I've got it wrong, and being the bad therapist, because that's where we remember. AJ remembers that example. I remember many examples. Because actually what happens is, I had a client I was working with who, I'll explain this, it was online, we're in lockdown, she's in America, I'm here, long-term client, she's pregnant, she goes into freeze, I go into freeze. This is where I'm thinking, oh my God, is this happening? I don't know what to do. And we were literally both down the well. There was nobody up top. And I'm really thinking, wow, because my brain and body were in the freeze state and I just didn't have a clue what to do. I didn't have a clue. And after the session, I was left feeling like a failure. I could not change my client's state, that I did the wrong thing, all the critical parent stuff. I was also worried that my client's pregnant, and have I impacted her baby by not doing anything, by the baby in utero? So this work actually involves meeting the full force. When you are open to this, which you all are, you're meeting the full force of your client's trauma, pain, grief, and sadness in a very spontaneous process. And there is a reenactment that takes place in the here and now. That reenactment is what happened to me when I'm down the well. There is learning from this. There is supervision. There is support, but it isn't very nice. Okay, so please remember that this level of work is transformative and not damaging. It is transformative and not damaging. By noticing and working with this conflict, it will reorganize itself. It will. You don't have to reorganize it. It will reorganize itself. And Michael Soth again says that he sees this reenactment and how to deal with it as the central issue for all relational psychotherapy, which I think is extremely powerful. Okay, so there's something that I'm going to talk about that we all want to avoid. And this is noticing discomfort, edges, what's spoken, what's not spoken, what's felt in the room. And I'm really going to ask you to notice who's coming to mind, who you're working with next week, who you're dreading working with next week, who you're looking forward, just what these feelings are, who's coming to mind. So in particular, I also want to highlight erotic charge. And this is something that happens and is often avoided by therapists. I actually recall being embarrassed and ashamed to take erotic countertransference to supervision. I still am, but I still am. So Allison Priestman writes that our profession's collective intolerance and dread of erotic countertransference is real. So when the erotic comes into our capacity to witness, when the erotic comes in, our capacity to witness can be compromised, and we get lost in the intensity of the relational exchange. So working relationally, our task is to dance between these poles, and it's hard, of the detached witness and somebody swimming in the soup with our clients, that being down a well. So the erotic can threaten to overwhelm either or both of you, both participants. We are in the sway of powerful emotions, which means that the potential for transformation is also present. So when I'm saying this, I'm going to ask you to check in with your breath, your body, what's going on. So it's uncomfortable, it's sticky, it's hot, it's wet, it's the stuff where we feel ashamed of bringing. This is all part of our work with the breath, the nervous system, and knowing and trusting in the work that it will reorganize itself. Okay,